Welcome to S&S Southern Styles. I am today's host, Miss Taylor, and today I am going to be showing y'all how to make water droplets in y'all's resin. Now this is something that I've recently learned, so y'all are going to go and have a little journey with me. I'm going to be doing quite a bit of experiments today to see what all is going to work, what all isn't going to work. So we're going to have some really cool and interesting outcomes, because I, in all honesty, do not know what's going to happen. So we will all be learning together. One thing that I learned that you need to do when you're making these water droplets is you need to have a base coat of resin on your molds. My molds aren't the cleanest in the world. I have not cleaned them before this video, but that's going to be okay. Some of the experiments that I want to do are with little droplets in my molds. Another thing is I've seen a bunch of people paint in their molds and then lay down resin, and when they pull up their item, the paint doesn't come off of it. But I have had a lot of problems with my experiments is that when I put the paint down and I let it harden up and then I put the resin down, is the paint scrapes off the resin. My little experiment that I have is that I have some paint already down on my mold, and I'm gonna see if I'm doing something wrong or what's going on with that. So I'm gonna be experimenting with that as well, along with making our water droplets, which nobody accounted for, but it's okay. So what I'm doing first is I'm going to be using these 5 up here, and then that one will be the one that I use for my paint, and I'm just putting a coat layer down on all of them. As with the water droplets that no one really talks about, is that you have to have a base layer of just plain clear resin in order to make the droplets look the way that they do. Now, my experiment that I'm going to do is, I don't know if it has to be clear droplets or if we can do different color droplets. What all is going to have to be needed, absolutely foundation needed for making these. Now I know for a fact that you're going to have a clear mold first before you do anything else, but I don't know if we can use a lighter color. So if I mix a little bit of yellow with this to just make it seem like it has a light tint of yellow or a light tint of green, if that will still work. So I would like to do that as well. So I have these 3 molds done as of right now, as I'm going to do the background a bit different with these 3. The one that's here in the middle, this one's just going to be my normal one, just my base with a simple clear coat. I'm going to put clear drops on it, and I'm going to put eyeshadow on the background of it and put a dark resin color behind it, and that should give it the look that everyone's looking for. But as long as the rest of these go, we're going to be trying something different, just to see if we can do anything different. Now these 2, what I was talking about is I want to know if we can use a light base for it and if it will still work. So I'm going to pour some resin into a separate cup. And I'm just going to use yellow, just a light yellow, which I don't I'm going to use my eyeshadow to mix with it because that's going to be the lightest color that I will be able to get with my yellow. So it will be more of a golden shimmery yellow than anything else, but it's the only way that I'll be able to get the color the lightest that I need. I'm not going to do a lot, I'm just going to do a little bit. A lot goes a long way. Well, a little bit goes a long way. So of course a lot goes a long way. And right now I just have some clumps of eyeshadow, so I'm breaking up the clumps to release the color in them, and so that way I just won't have clumps showing up. But sometimes in some of my resin I won't, because I like the texture that it gives when the clumps are showing up in it. So just depending on how much you mix your resin, depends on how fine you'll get. I just do have a little chunks left in it. Probably not going to be too heartbroken if there are a few left. Okay, so we're going to do this face first, then I will probably do a matted base next, since this one is more of a sparkly base. The next one that I'm going to do will be a matted base, so that way we can see if the sparkles make a difference just by looking at that. I'm going to be 100% honest, a matted base is probably going to be needed, but we won't full-heartedly know until after. Now with this one, I am going to use just my normal stuff with it. I'm not going to use a whole lot. So like I said, this yellow gets very intense very quickly. And we just want a settled, soft, lightly tinted color base. This down in the UV light. Now that's done curing, we are going to put our droplets in. With these two, I am going to do an experiment with my droplets. I'm going to make them different colors. So like what I did here, I'm going to make one of them the same sparkles that we used for this one, and then the other one is going to be the same yellow that we used. But like I said, this one right here is going to be our base. And when you do this part, when you put the water droplets down, right when you put them down, you're going to want to cure them, because this is basically works the same way that water works. If you leave a drop of water down, there's a chance that it's going to spread, and if you want your droplets to look the way that you set them down, you're gonna have to cure them right away. But with these two, I'm just going to use clear water droplets. Well, I'm actually probably going to do a mixture. Yep, I'm going to do a mixture. So, because I'm going to do a mixture, I'm going to get these guys done first. There's a bit more yellow in it. Just a smidge. Maybe a smidge more. So I want the yellow to be defined, but at the same time, I also want it to still be clear enough that you'll be able to see through the yellow. And so right now, that's what I am experimenting with. Make sure that it's the right consistency of yellow that I'm looking for. And I think that's good. Yep. And also do keep in mind that the colors that I am seeing are not as vibrant as the colors in which y'all are seeing. And now the one that I put over here in the corner, not all of my base filled up that corner, so this water droplet should maybe drip into that corner a little bit, and we can see how that turns out and how that looks. And if that looks really cool, that can be another experiment that can be done in the future. Show different types of effects. And since I did want the sparkle resin to have a darker one, because I don't think we're going to be able to see through the sparkles, I am going to make my yellow vibrant now. Now it almost looks like mustard. If I put a little tint of orange in it, I can make it look like honey. In which the eyeshadow that I use, it's cheap eyeshadow that I bought from Walmart that's on sale. I don't really use any type of brand. All of it works relatively the same. Some of it I do have to mix a bit more than the others due to the clumpiness. But other than that, I don't see why you would have to go all out for any of it. Now I do know that some of the stuff that you can get for resin itself or for just the silicone molds actually stick onto the molds a lot better. I haven't experimented with any of those. That would be really fun and really cool to do. But as far as right now goes, I'm fine with my cheap clearance broken eyeshadow. Now we have our darker yellow, and I'm also going to do the darker yellow on with the yellow. So I'm going to also wonder if you use the same color, just a different darkness, different vibrance, if that causes any type of difference. Which I have a feeling that these aren't going to look as good as what the other ones are. But I'm pretty 100% sure that we're going to have a clear base to make these work. And see, to also show you when I said you put the dots down, how right when you put them down, you're going to want to take it over and cure it. It's because I put these two together and they're already starting to spread to become one. So once you do your first, you're going to want to go ahead and put it under your UV light, so that way it doesn't spread. We are back with our beautiful molds. So, and with my one on the end, I'm going to do a clear dots just like what I did for my control, but it's because the back of it I'm going to do different than what I do with this one. Using the same stuff that I've noticed other people have been using, so I don't know if plain eyeshadow is going to have the same effect. So that's also what I'm testing here today as well. If you have to use a certain type of material. And now that all of them are done, the one in my center, I'm going to put eyeshadow on it. That's what I've noticed a lot of people were doing, and I slightly did it before and it worked really well. I didn't put a good coating on it. I put a very thin coating, so it didn't turn out the best in the world. And I don't also have anything to apply this onto. That's why I think that's why I think the eyeshadow they were using, well, I don't think it was actual eyeshadow. I think that was meant to be used for this alone. And then my other thought too is, do we have to put this on, or can we just put a clear basin down and that be enough? I don't know. So I'm doing this. It's not really working well. The only reason this isn't working well is because I don't have an eyeshadow thing. I don't think. I don't wear makeup, so I don't know the right terms for any of the tools that you need in order to wear makeup. Okay, I found one. And it does exactly the same. Okay, so it's just the fact that, see, it sticks really well to my mold though. It sticks really well to my mold. It just does not like sticking to the resin. Okay, I'm gonna do another little experiment. Since this sticks really well to my mold, and I already want to do the experiment over there with the paint, I might as well just do the same over here and see if this is going to come off with the resin or if it's going to mix. What's going to happen there is going to be my next experiment that y'all discovered with me. I know this looks really bad, so this turns out decent but looks a bit funky. It's because I am not using the right material to put on top of it to make this effect work, and I do not know if having that certain brand or that certain material is what causes that water effect. This is the main experience, is what do we need or have to do in order to make these water droplets work. And if this works, that's gonna be awesome, because I've never done this before. You are going to need a darker color to put down behind it to make it pop more. I know I have my yellow, but I don't think my yellow is actually going to be dark enough to make this work. I'm going to try and use a dark gray on these, or close to even a black. I don't know. I won't be able to do solid black, because if I do solid black, it's not going to look really good and it's not going to cure good. I might be able to do layers of something that is close to solid black. So we are going to see. That clicky noise is me trying to open my resin bottle. Found the gray metallic we're going to see how that goes. If it does really good, awesome. If not, I am going to put a navy blue mixed in with it. So I'm hoping that the darkness of the navy blue and the darkness of the gray will make a good enough mixture to work. And the colors that I used will work. I actually didn't think that that gray would turn out as dark as it did. That's amazing. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but it also already kind of has a hint of blue in it. It's really nice. Now this is going to have chunks in it, like what I've talked about before when I did my yellow. I can sit here and I can get all the chunks out, or I can just leave them. I'm probably going to leave them for this just because they are slightly hard to see. So it's going to take me a bit to get that completely smooth out. I am going to do a slightly thin layer on all of these, since I don't know how well this color is actually going to cure. I would like it to cure very nicely. And I am also about to have to make some more. I've made my second batch, and I already can tell that we're going to run into a slight problem because my eyeshadow that I put down on this one has already started to rise up to the top. I don't know how big of a difference that is going to make, so this might be a situation to right once you put the stuff down, you're going to have to cure it right away, like what we did with the water droplets. All this gray is going to cure up. It should do nicely because I can still see the droplets through the layer of gray that I put down, so it's either going to cure up fine or it's not going to do it at all. But it should do fine, and we'll do my second layer. If I realize after doing my second layer, once I take the items out of the molds, you can still see the background, so it's still very see-through. I am going to take some white paint and mix it up with some resin, and then do a thin layer of that behind it. And once I do that, it will make it to where it's no longer see-through and all the colors will just pop out more and better. I have had to do that a couple of times on some of my items. And once you do that, do a little bit of light with it and try and do layers on it if you can, because if you do put too much white paint in there, sometimes it won't harden up. If you use just plain acrylic paint, that should be just fine, or you can even use white fingernail polish that hardens up under UV light, and that would honestly be your best bet. Sometimes what's best is when you put your mold under the UV light and your top part of it is hardened, flip your mold over and put the UV light on facing the back, so that way the back of it will harden as well, because if the top part hardens when the back isn't fully hardened, when you take it out it's just going to explode all over the place. But if you flip it over and let the UV harden differently, like what you would do with a pancake when you're cooking a pancake, same concept, one side of it gets cooked, the other doesn't, so you gotta flip it so that way the other side can get cooked. Now I'm going back through with my second layer. I will not put a second layer on that one because I cannot see the water droplets through it, but I am going to put a second layer on the rest of the floor because I can still see the back behind it, and I have a little bit of room to where I can. And once I take these out and I realize that the second layer wasn't enough, I am going to go back behind it with the white, like what we talked about, so that way it'll at least clear everything up. And if I cover up the holes on these, that's okay for this experiment. I won't use as much resin for the base, for everything else next time. But also too, I do have a Dremel, so even if I do fill up my holes, I have a way in order to still make the items work. I know not everybody else has, so if you run into the issue that when you're doing these experiments that you run over, just keep in mind that next time just don't use as much. And if you want a really thin base on your resin, you can put a little bit down, rub it around with the tools that you have, or even just take the item and move it around and put your UV light on it right away, so that way it will cure the whole surface without having to fill in the whole surface. I know that people say a good way to tell if your resin is cured or not is if you touch it and it's sticky. That means that it still needs to cure some, and when you touch it and it's smooth and it's good. Well, as you can tell, I have resin all over my hands. You should wear gloves, or if you don't like wearing gloves, have some paper towels with you so you can constantly keep your hands cleaned. And once you're done with one project, go ahead and wash your hands before you get working on your second one. But the way that I tell, since I have the resin on my hands, is if it is still warm, that means it's still curing. So think about it as baking, but instead in reverse. When you bake, you have something cold, and when you cook it, it gets warm. Well, in this case, the resin starts out cold, and then it heats up, and then once it heats up and it's fully cured, it will cool down and won't be hot anymore. So that's how I see if my resin is fully cured or not, is depending on how hot it is. If it's a little bit warm, you should be good, but if touching it and it's still scalding hot, that means that you need to let it cool down some more, which the resin I use have never got so hot to the point that it burns me, but it gets hot enough to where you notice it. And our experiment is, well, halfway done. I am going to want to look at these first before I mess around with these, and that's just because I'm really excited on what happened, and also for people who only want to watch the water droplets and don't care about the others, they don't have to watch it. So here is our first one, and the second one's already wanting to come out from it. Yeah. So as you can tell with this one, I didn't put anything behind the water droplets, and it really does just blend in. You can't tell that there's supposed to be anything there at all. So you are going to have to put something behind the droplets so that way you can see it. And here's this one. So the yellow, you can kind of see it in there. I think if I would have used maybe a darker color, it would be better. But even if it had a white background, it's not that noticeable. I don't know if using a darker color for the droplets would be best. That's why I did it with this one, because we're gonna figure it out. Now this one did kind of work, so you can kind of see it there. So it probably is going to be an exception to where you're just going to have to find the right items and materials in order to put behind it to make this actually work. or if I would have just put the eyeshadow on the droplets itself instead of on everything else around it. That might make this better. Yeah, and then the sparkles for this. Absolutely made it to where you can't see anything. Now you might be able to use sparkle droplets because we did not do that. So if you use the sparkles that you used to make this and how vibrant it is, I don't know if you did the droplets with that color instead, if that would work. We will actually try that one next, just to see, because I did not do that and I am curious if that itself is what's going to work. So this one did actually fairly well. It doesn't give that effect that we're looking for, not the same one that this one does, because this one looks like it's kind of hollowed in a bit, and this just looks like you put dots in it. I'm going to try to make another one but use the dots in the sparkly color that I have right here and see for the life of me if that's going to make a difference, and if it doesn't, you are going to have to use a certain material in order to get that look that you're looking for. Or it might, yeah, because even with this one, so I use clear droplets on that, and I use clear droplets on this but without the eyeshadow behind it, and it gives no effect that anything should be there. But it's enough talking. Let's see what we can do. Experiment off camera with the different eyeshadows that I have, because I do have just the cheap brand eyeshadow that's been clearanced out from Walmart, but I will experiment with them and see which one works best, which one sticks to the resin better. It might be a situation to where you're just gonna need a certain type of eyeshadow, or maybe a certain type that sticks really well, which y'all watching this probably already know what's needed for it. And if you do, that would be awesome. And it would be fair. I would be very grateful if you told me, so that way other people will know as well. So if you know what's needed in order to make this work, correct me. Just write down in the comments whatever you need, so that way whoever poor soul watches this video, they'll have some wisdom actually presented to them. We're just going to do one droplet there in the center. Kinda would really like it if I did put more eyeshadow on it. I don't know if that's gonna make a difference. We'll see. Probably going to do another layer of the sparkle on top of it, just because I don't feel like that's going to be enough, or it might be. I don't know, but I'm going to do another layer just in case. See if it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, cool. Like I said, I'm going to go and put another layer of sparkle down on top of the one that I've already made. If you're doing this, just be careful. See, sparkle into my mixture to put onto that, because adding that second made it pop. I don't know if that's going to be enough to make this work or not. I'm hoping so, because if not, that means that y'all have a whole video of what not to do instead of a video on how to do. Either which way, it's still good to know, so that way I will waste my resin so y'all won't have to. Now that that's done, we still have a little bit of our gray left. It's not as dark as what the others were. Might have to, maybe not. Maybe not. Just gonna see. It should still be enough to see if this is even going to work out. I'm gonna fiddle with this off camera, and I was mixing it when the UV light was on it, so that way once the UV light cured a thin layer of the black, I just put that thin layer of the black on top of the little droplet that I made, so that way the droplet will have a full black covering behind it. Now it's done and it's cured up. So this is how it came out. I think now I'm gonna do it because I thought it. If we do a clear on the bottom, and then we do a clear droplet, and then cure the clear droplet, and then we put sparkle behind the clear droplet, and then put the background behind it, if it will do the same effect. Because this one worked really well. The only problem is that the eyeshadow did not stick to it. But if we can force the eyeshadow to stick to it, then maybe that would work. So that's what we're gonna try. I'm gonna make some more mixtures, some more colors. I'm going to skip everything, and I'm going to have it just to where you see the finished project. So I did quite a bit while y'all were away. I have my other idea curing right now. So these are the two that I had left to the side, and this one has paint underneath it, and this one right here has the eyeshadow underneath it. I also did a second experiment with eyeshadow. I put 3 droplets down, and then I filled it up with black to see if maybe that has any effect. Either which way, I'm going to get 2 answers out of this one, doing it this way. That did not cure all the way. Okay, so what the white paint ended up doing is it made it to where my resin could not cure. Do you know that thing we talked about with the pancake? Yep. Okay. And then the paint does just scrape off. So I have a feeling that the people who are painting are either painting with some type of paint that can cure under UV light, or they're doing a thin layer of a clear coat of just resin, and then they're painting it, letting that paint dry, and then doing another clear coat over it, so that way the paint can harden within it, and so that way there's no layer of resin that can't be uncured. Yeah, so the eyeshadow does slightly come off of this one, but at the same time, just a little bit, and the little streaks and the little lines I made in it do actually show up. So that's really nice to know, that if you want to do, I have these pumpkin molds, and if I just do a clear yellow of eyeshadow, just a layer of it, and then put clear resin through it, it will show up as yellow. So if you don't have a whole lot of colors to use, this would be a good alternative to do. So down to my last attempt. I did a clear coat, I put a clear dot down in it, I made 2 dots with this on top of the clear dot, and then I coated it with the black. Hey, it actually worked. It is a bit smudged on the side, and that's because when I did my second dot with the sparkle, I did accidentally make it run off a little bit, so you can do that. So in order to make the water droplet effect, when you don't have the right eyeshadow that you're supposed to use, I know it's not called eyeshadow, I really don't know what the names of those are. To me, it just looks like eyeshadow, and it works the same way eyeshadow works. That's what I'm gonna call it. I will look up the proper brands names that need to be used to make this, but this actually works. So just do a thin layer of clear resin, do a clear droplet down, whatever types of droplet you want, put just the clear droplets down, cure those droplets. When you have them back, put some sparkle down. It doesn't matter, I use color sparkles and I got a color droplet. So when I was over here talking about how I wanted color droplets, you can do that. So use whatever color sparkles you want to use. You can probably mix just plain white sparkles with colored resin to get the sparkly effect. Do a couple of dabs. So do your first little dab, cure it, do your second dab and cure it, and then put your thin layer of black over it, and then do multiple layers with that. Do test out whatever colors you want to use on something small to make sure that it gives the look that you want it to do before you work on your big project. But this right here, it looks really nice other than the little runoff I did. But even that doesn't look bad. And when you do this, you're going to want to cure it right away. Same thing, the moment you put your droplets down, instantly hit it with your UV light. I did not do that, and that's why I have the little runoff. But I don't know, I think it looks nice. Yay! Out of everything, one thing finally worked. Well, thank y'all for sticking through and watching this. This one was a bit of a struggle, but it worked. So now you'll know what to do, so you don't have to waste all this time and all of this resin. Try and figure it out. But thank y'all for watching. Bye!